Welcome to episode 27 of the Watchlist podcast. Today we're talking about teenage sex and death at Camp Miasma. And what a movie this is. It's kind of a ridiculous movie. It's kind of crazy it
Yeah.
got made. Jane talks about how this was a really hard movie to get made, and you can kind of see that when you're watching it. It's kind of, I mean, from the opening shot, you're like, "Whoa, this is like
Yeah.
so different
I
and
was
kind of experimental in a lot of ways."
it's really good. What do you think of Jane Schoenbrun as a filmmaker?
They are I typically so I like all of their movies, right? All three of their movies I like. Um I think they're just standard good. Like they're nothing like crazy to me. My favorite is We're All Going to the World's Fair, but I think this movie is perfect for them because I think it kind of shows their style and it feels very personal and kind of like an ode to filmmaking in a lot of ways and like queer cinema and like uh,
Yeah.
being comfortable in your sexuality, which I really like. I think that that's the strongest part of this film, for sure. I think my biggest gripe, I would just start from the beginning. I don't love this movie mostly because I think the tone switches are like too crazy for me. Like I think the movie doesn't like settle into one specific tone for too long. And there's movies that can kind of switch tones very well that like fit like I like a lot. But when it's a movie like this, the tone switches are too apparent and they don't make as much sense to me. It kind of feels like they're juggling too much, you know? Like the whole film is like juggling too much. It's like going from one thing, like going to really serious, like deep stuff about like sex and death and all that stuff, which is in in the title. But then it'll go to like some really quirky like comedy bits to like horror to like even the filmmaking is very dynamic, right? Like it'll go to like crazy POV shots, which is like my favorite sections of the film, and then it'll go
Yeah.
to like more stereotypical filmmaking, and then I mean the movie looks great. It's amazing what they're able to do because some like the watercolor shit. I didn't know that's how they made it, but there's even clips of
Yeah, that clip's going
in
around
the
of
film.
the
There's like stock footage in the film of them making it, which is like
yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
It's like so
No,
crazy.
I think it starts like the kind of the first shot is going, through like the film set and they film a section of one of the Camp Miasma movies, right? And that's kind of how it's introduced. Did you know that this was gonna be that kind of movie? Or did you know what you were going into when getting into this movie?
I mean, I knew like from the trailers, I knew it looked very colorful. Like the color grade looked really bright. Like kind of like unrealistic set design, you
Mhm.
know, kind of stuff like that with like the mountains in the background and like the blood pouring up and all that stuff. So I was super excited for that. But when you do introduce it and it's like going backstage and all this stuff and then they set up the camera and then it shows like the shot that they're setting it up for, I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah.
that's pretty, like I wasn't expecting stuff like that. I mean even later in the movie they have like the stock footage of like showing them setting up these shots and even Jane in the film, like her as a director like directing the shot, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. um but again, like the whole movie would have served being kind of similar to that, where it's kind of being flamboyant in a lot of ways. But no, I didn't expect it to be as like um out there as it ends up being,
Yeah.
you know.
I just because I did not look at a lot of marketing for this movie and just kind of like saw, some big stuff, and I kind of just thought it was gonna be a slasher, like straight up, like a
Oh,
kind of
really?
slasher movie. Like, cause I just was like, oh, Jane Schoenbrun's slasher movie. Obviously, as a filmmaker, I knew like Jane Schoenbrun as a filmmaker, I knew it out of her like language and style and that kind of thing. But I was kind of, I don't know. I was just like, okay, slasher movie. And so going into it, that kind of flip from it's not, and it's actually about Hannah Einbinder as this like very obvious self-insert for Jane, and
Yeah.
um and kind of about her making a movie, uh caught me off guard in a way where I was like, "Ooh, I kind of was excited for a slasher movie." But
Mm.
and it took that was kind of my biggest thing while watching the movie is it kind of took me a while to get on board with it. And then
Me as well.
once I got on board with it, I kind of accepted these things, and I started thinking about it, and I started thinking about the way that Jane is presenting this information, and kind of, this is as a new form of expressing you know, like their transition period, but totally different than TV Glow or going to the World's Fair, where I think some of my maybe mixed feelings on TV Glow and that is kind of the cynicism of it all. And this movie kind of being a more optimistic kind of, accepting, um, or yeah, just it's a really interesting way to display that, within the
Yeah.
confines of like doing the slasher genre and all that. It's so interesting, and I kind of I don't want to say I feel a similar way, but like I feel similarly as like I love this slasher genre so much, and it does have like these problematic themes or just themes in general about like gender and sexuality are like all throughout, the slasher movies, right? Like and Jane kind of talks about these like these negative images or portrayals, right? For example, an example would be Psycho, Norman Bates, as like this sort of trans killer or of sorts,
Yeah.
right? And that kind of being like
Yeah.
a bad image. And there's other examples. But this movie kind of taking that and because I think that's such an interesting nuance because it is a thing where you watch these movies, whatever it may be, and if you're into it, I don't know. I feel like most cinephiles kind of gravitate towards the slasher genre or at least like horror movie fans or that kind of person. There's this which a lot of the times like horror movie fans I think does kind of coincide with like queer communities, and
Yeah.
that's really interesting because of kind of there's a lot of misogyny and a lot of, just like transphobia, homophobia, and all that. But there's just like something about these movies that really like speak to that community. And like, so that's why I think this movie does that so interesting. And there's even an image of Hannah Einbinder's character. Is it Einbinder? Am I saying that?
Einbinder, yeah.
Einbinder? Hell yeah. As a child kinda watching the I don't know if she's watching the Camp Miasma movies in the movie. She's watching something. It is the Camp Miasma movies, and
Yeah.
is very, like, very affected by it, right? And Jane even talks about, being an 8-year-old and watching too many movies she shouldn't have been watching at that age and kind of that being very formative, as a child. And there's even lines about Hannah Einbinder's characters talking about that with Gillian Anderson. Um, but all that's very interesting, and I think this like optimism is something I gravitate more towards just generally. And so I think this is my favorite of Schoenbrun's movies.
I
Yeah.
mean, it does feel like a very self-introspective film in general, not even just as like a queer person, but also just as like a filmmaker. And I think like I can't attest to like the queer part of it, right? And I can appreciate that part, but I do like attest myself more to like the filmmaking part. And I think those kind of reflections are what I love about the film the most, like the way it's going about it, of talking about like how film is impacting and
Yeah.
Chris's character is like Jane in a lot of ways, of like being like this. this indie filmmaker who made like a small film that impacted a lot of people, and she's even talking about like, I don't understand, like they're they're trusting me to do this film, and he uses that opportunity to like be more experimental, and like she's doing these Zoom
Yeah.
calls, and like the producers aren't like understanding
Yeah.
like her vision. And I think that's so real as a filmmaker, especially in this day and age of like not wanting to do the stereotypical cookie cutter film all the time, or like the remake, right? It's like wanting to be different and show your personality, and that's really hard for producers to kind of put their money towards, right? Because it is a risk. Just like how this movie is a risk, right? Which is
Yeah.
again why I think it's crazy that this film is made in the way that it's made, doing a lot of experimental things and just getting more into experimental work. Like as a person, like Luke got me into getting into experimental filmmaking, and like being able to see that in the theaters with a narrative film is always like fun to see.
Yeah.
Um, like this movie is it's not a horror film in any regard, really. Like, it doesn't
Well,
feel like a horror f there's
I
definitely
actually
moments.
disagree. I
You think
think
it's a
the
horror film?
tone that it's setting up in the Gillian Anderson, Hannah Einbinder part, they they tonally play it kind of like a horror movie where you're kind of there's two people in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, and there's this eerie thing with Gillian Anderson where something's up, and she looks over and she's like talking to someone. She's talking to like the vet man or something, or like it's creepy, and there's like she's like, I heard you talking to someone last night. She goes up and checks the room, and there's like the jump scare. And I mean, just generally, I think tonally, uh there's the atmosphere of a horror movie, which is really interesting, I think. But like you're right, it's not. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, I just had to put that out there as like, I think it feels like a horror movie.
Yeah, there's, like, elements of it. I think from the very beginning, I kind of went into it thinking it was gonna be more horror type, and
Yeah.
then, like, I see those moments, but I'm kind of in the lane where I immediately see that it's a movie about movies, you know? And so then I'm kind of on that board where it kind of feels like, oh, she's making a movie, and it's about filmmaking and about sexuality and all this stuff. Um, there's a big, I think the biggest headline about this movie right now is its relation to One Night Only. I know you haven't seen One Night Only,
But
but
the Will Gluck statement, is that what you're
yeah,
talking
the
about?
Will
Yeah.
Gluck statement of like he cut out a bunch of sex scenes because he says that people don't want to see sex in movies anymore. Um, and this movie is like the the counterpart to
Yeah.
that almost entirely. There's like some really funny sex scenes in this
Yeah.
movie.
Really
In
good.
particular, like them laying down, and they have all like this the movie theater snack is like a very big thing in this movie. There's even like a
Yeah.
chandelier of
There's
movie
so
theater
many.
snacks. Like, and there's, like, so many wrappers, and she's
Yeah.
buying all these like, she's instead of, like, buying actual food, she's, like, buying movie theater snacks, and she's just munching on those, and she has, like, an obsession with the Camp Miasma films, and I think that's a really cool element of being, like, she's really into this story, right? She's in love with the Camp Miasma movies, and because Chris is into those movies, she wants to do it honors by like putting her own twist on it. She doesn't want to fall into the stereotypes of the the like how it was. Like they point out like the flaws. I think there's even a moment where they're watching it together, and they're like, uh oh yeah, this is the trans part. This is the transphobic part, right? They mention that right before the scene happens. And even Gillian Anderson's character Billy shows the movie in like her own like in film, right? Like
Yeah.
on film on theater. And Chris's reaction to that is like one of my favorite parts of the film, of being like, wow, like I've seen this movie multiple times, but for some reason that was different. Um, and that's so true. Like and that's like why I rewatch movies. There's a lot of people that don't rewatch movies, right? They're like anti rewatch. Oh, you won't get anything out of it. I think rewatching movies is a big part of like being a filmmaker, right? Like studying the film,
Yeah.
right? It's you get a different experience each time, and I just love those little nuggets that Jane kind of puts into this film
Yeah.
of just like she's aware of the art of filmmaking. She's a true artist in my opinion, which is why I like her a lot as a filmmaker. Um, so yeah, and I mean Gillian Anderson's character is so intriguing like the whole time. Like it kind of has a mystery. There's like a sexual pull between them from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Chris is kind of feeling her out at the beginning, you know, is kind of weirded out by how she's acting. And it's one of those moments of I've felt this a lot, like living in Austin, and I've got to meet like these filmmakers, right? Being away from them, like apart from the screen, like seeing someone on a screen and then meeting them in person. I was talking to this with some coworkers the other day. Like that to me is like very visceral, right? Like I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, and then I meet Daniel Kwan. There's like something crazy about that, right? Where you're like,
Yeah.
I like your art, and then you're able to meet that person, and the whole movie kind of feels like that of Chris like being in love with her as the last girl of the first Camp Miasma movie, and like kind of being intrigued by her on film, and then being able to spend as much time as she does with Billy's character
Yeah. Well,
in
I
person,
think
and kind of like feeling that out.
even more
It's
like
cool.
that character is like her sexual awakening kind of,
Yeah,
which I think is implied, and then being stuck in a cabin with them for that period of time, and I think it's tough to create, I think, chemistry, especially sexual chemistry, with that like age gap. um and I think it's done so well where you quickly feel it, and I mean, they quickly go into, like, the dipping sauce thing where it's like, "You like dipping sauce? I love
that's
dipping
hilarious.
sauce," and it's like,
Yeah,
they go into
like a
that,
monster.
um,
Yeah,
and just things like that, but even just through their conversations, you can tell, Hannah Einbinder's character, I don't know her name, I keep saying, but,
Chris.
Chris,
Yeah,
they're, just they almost have a bias to just be pulled. They want to be pulled in, right? They're kind of like, and their I think their dynamic is so strong, and their performances are so interesting, especially Gillian Anderson. Well, I think Hannah Einbinder really like pulls this movie together as like one, like she is like the through line that like really, I think, makes
she's a
this.
movie star, dude.
Yeah, and I have no, I don't think I've seen her in anything other than this. I know she's in
Yeah,
Hacks, but I'm not watching
yeah,
that shit. And,
yeah.
Gillian Anderson, I've seen some. She's famous for X-Files. I haven't seen X-Files. Uh, I've seen her in other stuff. She's good, but X-Files, like, her big thing, which looks really good actually as a TV show. But I think Gillian Anderson's performance is just so strange, and, like, I'm always just drawn to these, like, strange performances, and I think it's a difficult one. I mean, they mentioned Norma Desmond from Sunset Boulevard, like, 3 times, and she kinda does give that vibe in, like, a really interesting way, and I think towards, like, the 3rd act, um, when they have their sex scene and they're more, like, emotional scenes, I think it's really effective, because of that, for sure. Yeah.
Think and just there's so many instances of introspection that I want to mention, but I think the
Yeah.
biggest one for me is the when I think they're starting to have sex, and then Chris's character kind of just like rejects it, like she's feeling too emotional about it, like it's
Yeah.
impacting her a lot, and she kind of stops it, and they're kind of laying together naked, surrounded by snack wrappers,
Yeah.
and she's talking about something that I think is probably my favorite part of the movie, other than like the POV murder spree, is the she's like, I want to make the she's talk it's so insane. Like this the screenwriting here is great because she's talking about her making the movie of like why she wants to make the movie. And she's talking about this desire to be like the people that she's seen on screen, right? She's like, I desire to have that fear in my eyes and to be
Yes,
running
yes.
away, and she's like, "I wanna, like, wear no bra, I wanna be running
She
with
wants to
my,
be the
like,
final
tits
girl.
bouncing," and she, like, wants to be scared, and then they kinda it's, like, such a cool it's just such a amazing moment of being, like, she wants to
Yeah.
feel that, and then, like, being able to do that is, like, kind of fun and showing that and, like, the joy of, like, being chased down and killed,
Yes.
and it
That
kinda
part is so
like
crazy. It's so crazy. It's so interesting, like, genuinely. Because I mean, there's even a line where she's like, "I don't just wanna make the movie, I wanna feel it," like, it's just, like,
yeah,
so, like, evocative, and seeing her, obviously become that is, I think, really, really incredible, and it's an incredible, sequence, but I think also kind of touches on that aspect of, like, the trans identity, kind of being able to kind of like, accept yourself, in the world, because, if the slasher genre kind of acts as, like, the negative images that the world has had on trans people, and kind of by becoming the final girl, like, kind of accepting yourself, but also being able to, like, reclaim the image of identity in that way, or, like, it's I love the nuance of just like the slasher being that kind of, like, item, you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's so crazy, and it's
And I like her
beautiful.
reaction. I like her reaction to Little Death coming out of the lake. It's like, "Oh, this is really happening. Like, I get to do
Yeah,
this."
right.
It's like her reaction, like, "Oh, it's happening. Like, I get to be the final girl." And she, like, kinda lets him, like, catch up to her at a moment, just to,
Yeah,
like, feel the
right.
thrill, and
It's so funny
it does
too.
does,
Like,
like, a
that part
slow-mo
is so
sequence, and
funny and so kind of emotional, I think. Like,
mhm.
it I do think this movie is hilarious. I laughed out loud multiple times. I think I don't know why, the funniest thing in this movie was the guy at the hotel at the beginning who she was like, "I'm like Camp Miasma," and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I was in that movie." And she's like, "Oh, really? I
Yeah,
thought
and
you
then
were
it
from."
shows clips of him throughout the
Yeah, the
movie.
clips of him in the movie are so funny. Like, I love that
Yeah.
guy.
Well,
Yeah.
I also one thing that shocked me, I wasn't expecting was, like, we get to spend a lot of time in the movie that they're
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah,
For,
which I loved.
like,
I
the
loved
I
that we
was like,
did
"Oh,
that.
that's cool." Because I remember seeing the trailers, and it shows, like, this, like, grainy footage
Mhm.
of, like, Zach Cherry's character, for example, at, like, the campgrounds and all this stuff, and, like, the younger version of Gillian Anderson's character. I saw that in the trailers, but I didn't expect it to be, like, so in depth of, like, just we get to see, like, part of that movie.
Yeah. No,
We
you
get
see a
to see
lot. Like, when they're watching
I
it,
know,
it's
like, you
long.
almost see the entire movie. Like,
Yeah.
you see them, like, showing up, and, like, you see the whole like, again, the POV murder sequence of Little Death is so good. It's so
Yeah, to the
insane and
Alex G
bizarre.
song.
The one problem with that, though, that I find is, Jane Schoenberg is she's kind of putting her own touch on that part of it, and it doesn't feel like that's how it would have been type of thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Like, in the real
the
movie.
like, the absurdist part of, like, Lil Death, like, slinging this guy on a spear against a pole and, like, him exploding. I don't see that being part of, like, an '80s film. I see that being part
Right.
of, like,
It's
Jane
definitely like a
Schoenbrun's movie.
parody. It's
Yeah, it's like a
being a
parody of
parody.
its own thing, and it's not a big gripe, but it's something I noticed. I'm like, this feels like she's making her own movie within the movie rather than, like,
Yeah.
showing what it was type of thing, and I was wondering, like, could she have shown it in a different way? But that scene is just so visceral for me, and it's,
Yeah,
like, so fun,
I
where
think
I don't care.
it's a matter of kind of like the movie having the tone where I think Jane really wanted the tone of it, um, knowing when to laugh at itself, and that part more, versus, like, a version less so of that, would maybe have that scene be like a literal like Friday the 13th or something,
Yeah.
you know. But
Well, it does kind of feel like, the way that she does it, like, showing that kind of elements of it makes it more believable why Chris's character would be attached to this kinda story. You know, if it was, like, kind of basic Friday the 13th or
mhm.
whatever, I don't see her being as, like,
Yeah, maybe.
emotionally emotionally there into, like, why she loves Camp Miasma, but because the original Camp Miasma movie is like that,
Yeah.
right? I can see it's like, "Oh, that's cool." Like, I would wanna make I like, that would be, like, a all-time classic in my opinion, you know,
Yeah,
if I
that's
saw
true.
that. Yeah, I'm like, "Oh, that's sick."
Yeah.
So it kinda makes sense for Chris's character. Um, and I mean, those POV shots are just so cool. Like,
Yeah, it is. And
it's just
I mean,
crazy killings,
the
the way the camera's moving around Little Death, like, it's, like, kinda attached to their shoulders, and,
yeah, what I
uh
I also thought was interesting was how the vent kind of looks like a camera in my head. Where like obviously it's a vent, but like, there's some aspect of the square with, the flaps that kind of looks like a camera. And so we're in that POV, it is kind of like a, which I just
yeah, it's
that was a really interesting image to me. Um, yeah, the vent is so funny. I'm like I was trying to think of like why a vent, or, it feels like a
yeah,
specific choice, but maybe it's just that's a joke. Which it probably
yeah.
is.
I mean, when Chris is on the Zoom call with the producers and
Yeah,
she's explaining how she wants the movie to go, and it's like, "Oh, Little Death is what created movies
yeah,
and is, like, down there, like, alone." I thought that was great. I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, that's so cool." If I was a producer, I'd be like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." And the producers I love how the
They're
producers are
so
just kinda
it's
like,
so
uh,
funny.
like, my least favorite part about the movie of why, like, referring to why the tone switches are really bad. It's funny because I find these parts funny. I just don't think it works. Is Sarah Sherman's character, her agent.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I just don't like it. Like, it's just not. It just first of all, Sarah Sherman. If you don't know her, she's like on SNL right now. It just feels very SNL cheap to me, and it just like the tone to me of this movie feels very serious even when it is being comedic, like that darker comedy. But then when Sarah Sherman's in it, it's like that goofy comedy. You have the whole sequence of them on a phone call and she's playing squash and you can hear
Yeah,
her starting to play squash. It's like, are you playing squash right now? It's like that stuff. It's like it's funny in the moment, but it like doesn't fit the tone for me very well, and it's like not adding much. And I just don't like Sarah Sherman like in general. Like she's not like the greatest comedic actor to me in general. So it just kind of feels like a flip on like just kind of like straying away from where we're building. It's like, oh, we're building, and it took me probably 30 minutes to kind of surrender myself to what this movie's doing, especially with all the tone switches at the beginning that it's doing and all the crazy stuff it's trying, and it kind of starts pretty slow in my opinion. After that first sequence, it's like taking a while to get to those deeper themes that I end up loving and enjoying. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like my biggest gripe with
yeah.
like Sarah
I
Sherman's character.
I would probably agree. I disagree with I think the I think the blending of tones works really well for me throughout, probably because of Hannah Einbinder just being that through line and just carrying it. But the squash was too far. Like,
Yeah.
it was a little like, yeah, it kind of took me out of it. Where I think like when it was over the phone, I think it was fine. And yeah, but then when it went like fully squash, and it's not like super short. It's kind of this whole bit.
Yeah.
And it is Sarah Sherman, which I think just like having an SNL cast member, no matter who it is, you get the feeling of like this SNL bit, especially when you
Well,
go
you know what I
like
was
a
thinking in
harsh
that moment?
location switch. Huh.
What I was thinking in that moment is like I think Eva Victor's miscast. I think Eva Victor could have been her like manager and it would have worked better because I think Eva Victor as the Mohawk girl or whatever, like
Yeah.
she's barely in the movie. And I
Right.
love Eva
Yeah, if you
Victor and I think
swap them even.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think Sarah Sherman with the mohawk would be
Yeah,
probably
that kinda makes more
more
sense for
impressive
Sarah
stuff,
Sherman.
you know what I mean? Yeah,
Um, Although I don't know, because if it's like because that character is kind of broody. I don't know if I
yeah,
saw Sarah Sherman's face and I would, like, believe it. I don't know. But yeah,
yeah,
sure. I mean, yeah, maybe not Sarah Sherman. I I'm not against Sarah Sherman. I don't know about, like, this movie, but I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah, I was yeah, it probably would have been better if she wasn't in the movie, you
yeah,
know? But whatever. She went away, at least. It's kind of
yeah,
sometimes it's a bad character in a movie, I'm like, "Well, they went away." So
yeah. Another thing too is, like, in the trailers, you see those, like, great watercolored
yeah,
landscapes behind them.
yeah,
Um, I'm mad it didn't linger on those a little longer.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It kinda
It
cuts pretty
does on
quickly from the
some, like,
top.
on some of the intro. I mean, I
It's
think
like
it
all those
mostly
establishing
does.
shots.
There's just a lot. There's a lot of them, which I think kinda makes up for it. Because when I've
Yeah,
seen the promos, I'm like, "This could easily be, like, a trailer shot kinda thing," and then they don't really, like, stick to that, like, style for, like, the
yeah,
movie, but I think we're what I mean, the when they're, like, in the 3rd act and it's the 2 of them and there's, like, the kinda, like, the snowy, colorful backdrop and they're, like, hugging,
yeah,
Like, that I'm like, "Oh, I'm fucking sold."
yeah.
Like, that is fucking crazy. And then the camp, I think I almost would like to spend, like, more time going through the camp, like the old camp they're at that's kind of abandoned, just as,
Yeah.
like, them. It does that with a little more with, like, the fake movie, but
They're kinda sitting on the porch a lot, they're kind of
yeah,
within that little
which is really
cabin area
cool.
a lot.
I love that
Yeah,
cabin, so it's cool,
I
but
like cabin.
yeah,
But I think those watercolor shots, if you're able to, like, put those in more, I think that like, I was expecting, like, the
yeah,
vibe of the movie to almost be, like, entirely like that.
right,
Like, every background shot is, like, this whimsical stuff, and it kinda makes it feel like a dream place, and it kinda only does it on the establishing shots, and then you don't get to see much of the mountains regardless of that, and, like, even the lake is, like, this big thing where it's, like, the hole at the
yeah,
bottom of the lake, I was kind of expecting more there, but no, it's not, like, huge, like, big on this thing, but I'm like, if you're spending all that time, like, building that kind of reality that they end up doing, like, I feel like you gotta use that more, I know it's very difficult because they have to line up those shots perfectly, and they have to make each of those, like, boards perfectly to the shape of the house or whatever, and that's, like, really impressive as it is. I'm just like, "Just sit there for a little bit," like, when she's entering the cabin and it shows it, it's, like, there for, like, 2 seconds, and then we're into the cabin, and I'm like, "No, stay there." I was like, "Just get," like, you know what I mean?
mhm,
Um, there's little moments like that, but it's not, like, crazy bad. Again, I think this movie looks gorgeous, and,
yeah,
uh, I love the score as well. I think the music
yeah,
is really
Alex
good.
G, I love this collaboration they got going. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just keep it coming. It's cool. I'm not
Alex
even
G is Alex G is gonna be here in Austin he's touring with Phoebe Bridgers.
Oh, yeah,
He's
cool.
like, he's opening for Phoebe Bridgers, and I was like, "Oh, I almost wanna go just to see Alex G, but I won't get nothing." But, yeah, I love him,
Yeah,
and,
multiple
like,
songs that play, like, just full songs
yeah,
that are just so cool.
there's an M83 song, and famously, he did the score for, Resurrection,
Mm,
um,
right.
which is, like, one of my favorite scores of last year. and there's an and I've had that in my, like, ambient playlist on Spotify, and I heard it when she was, like, shopping in the in the gas station store. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I know this song." I was like, this is so good."
Yeah.
And then I love the Satan song at the end of the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, so good.
That
I
song is
love the
so good.
montage, just like I yeah, I said it took me a while to get on board, but I really like how we enter this world, right? Where the movie starts with kind of the handheld camera goes into the that and then shows like this credit montage of this franchise kind of, and how this franchise has evolved, and there's like you know
And
the
it's dying
20
and all this stuff.
sequels, it's dying, it's failing at the it's making no money, there's video games on it, probably like bad video games, there's all this stuff, there's merchandise, and I think that's just you instantly understand what that place is in this world. It's a Friday the 13th. It's a, it's that kind of slasher franchise, right? And I was just I was just like, that's so cool. And it looks really cool. It's a really cool montage. And you have the song again, which is so cool.
Yeah, yeah, I like it a lot. There, I mean, you already touched on the acting a little bit. Like, I love the acting in it. I also had never seen Hannah Einbinder, and by the end,
Yeah.
what I've noticed with Jane is she knows how to cast these people with just like amazing like screen presence, just like their face.
Yeah.
I even think of like we're going to the World's Fair.
Yeah.
Um, she just has like a great face for like what's going on, and like this like kiddish like high schooler that's like isolated in her room, and it's just like, oh, I love that shit, with like the strobes hitting her face, and even in TV Glow, right? Like she just knows how to cast these people so well, and she's also not doing the thing where she's like casting bigger name actors, like they're kind of underground in a lot of ways, and I like how
Yeah.
she brought back Jack Haven for Little Death, which is really cool. I also
Right.
noticed Louise Weird was in this movie, and I saw her, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's Louise Weird." And I was like, because I was just about to watch the castration movies, um, and I actually just bought movie tickets to go see it in theaters, which is
Oh,
insane.
really?
I'm gonna go see Castration 2 in theaters. But it's cool, like getting all these like Tran actors, just like involved, which is really cool. I've
Yeah.
always said that we need to get more Tran actors in cinema. Like I wrote a transgender script, and I've always been of the mind I'm gonna hire like an actual uh transgender actors, because I think that it's like the same thing with like the Snow White thing, like why not get these people that don't have
Yeah. The Snow White
as
thing.
much opportunity in Hollywood, right? Um, to do this, and it's great, and Dylan Baker too, which
Dylan
is
Baker's
always.
so funny. Like
I
I
think when Dylan Baker, my whole theater was like, "Oh shit," like he's in this movie.
well, now
That
after
was.
watching Happiness, I just can't think of anything
Oh
else.
yeah, oh yeah.
But
Every time I see Dylan Baker, it's like I'm just thinking of
I
Happiness, and it's
know.
just like really weird.
He's so funny though. He's perfect. That whole Zoom call I think is genuinely one of the funniest scenes of the year for sure. Um,
Yeah,
just because I think Jane's kind of poking fun at herself with the Hannah with Chris, um, in a way of like maybe the pretentious side of being a filmmaker and kind of that where you're kind of um so for the art and you just kind of put away all all producer brain and all this like all this money brain stuff like but I it is kind of like a noble thing too obviously but I think it's like that makes it a really interesting kind of character at least for me to watch because talking about like doing the franchise, I don't want this to be another remake. This isn't going to be typical thing. I want to do something different. I want to do something special, right? And like um and then yeah, the Zoom meeting just kind of fully going off the rails. I'm going like, what the fuck? And him doing like the Michael Myers joke and then like
yeah.
laughing like because that shit's like so real of like what a fucking like meeting it like a Zoom meeting with your bosses if you work at like a company. It's just like everyone's making like bad jokes and it's just like awkward and you have to sit there. And the way I don't know who the guy is, but the guy in that chat, how he's being like polite and trying to like act like, you know, everything's normal and just like keeping it going is so funny to
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah. The dynamics in there are really good, and like even like I mean, again, like the comedy in this movie, like she goes into the thing is like, "Do you guys have Wi-Fi?" And then all these old people like lean over their booths and just start laughing at her.
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
Wi-Fi,
They all, like, pop up.
get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
It's
should
like,
piss
bro,
me
no.
off. I swear to
Oh,
God.
I'd be like, "Fuck you
Yeah.
guys."
Like,
I was
Jesus.
just asking politely.
Yeah.
Why you gotta laugh in my face?
Um,
Um,
last
the end or you go, you go.
Okay, I wanna point out we talked about the, like, sex part, but I watched an interview with Jane where they basically said how they were scared of sex for a long time, kind of transitioning and a bit post-transitioning, um, just, you know, understandably how that could be scary, and I think, like, that aspect and is so interesting thinking about, like, their sex scene and how, Chris was scared and kinda, like, stopped it and they keep going, um, but also kind of it's kind of like a little bit of, like, living through the essence of, like, living through the movies and kind of, like, living through, the screen, because I think that could also be carried over thematically to, like, watching the sex scene, happen in Camp Miasma and, that look while they're having sex and being infatuated with that look and maybe relating to that, kind of that, um, because she doesn't look like she's enjoying it in that movie, right? She's, like, scared and she dies. Um, and that I like that those images are all so strong to me, and it's just like
Oh, those shots are so good. The
yeah,
back and forth of POVs of, like, the whole rehabilitation of how Billy kind of, um, superficially creates this world and this environment for Chris to feel more comfortable sexually,
yeah,
of, like, entering that world of, like, "Okay, we're gonna put you in the perspective of what I went through in that movie. Because I think Billy even talks about how even filming that she was uncomfortable, right? And so then when Chris is in that moment and Billy's kind of there with her and kind of being like, okay, now just like surrender to it, and now you're gonna enter the POV of Little Death, right? And then you're in the POV of Little Death, and she's watching herself have sex, and then like the creepiness of like entering that room, right, and like seeing that from a distance, like that to me was very visceral, and like that's how she gets awakened. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool, of like the through line between like what you said, like the
yeah,
movies to reality, of like kind of reenacting that moment and uh
yeah,
going outside yourself, right? Outside of your fear to get out of that fear, right?
yeah,
It's like kind of making the reality a movie in a way. It's
yeah,
like it doesn't feel real. And I like that element. And it's also shot really well. I love
yeah, yeah,
the handhelds in here.
and
And
it's
it's just
also
so good.
meta on the
The
level
lighting.
of Jane's probably having this kind of experience while making this movie, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I
Which
can
is
feel it. Like I
yeah,
can feel it.
totally,
Like it almost yeah. It feels like every line that Chris is saying feels like it's Jane talking.
totally
That's really
well, it's so obvious in a lot of parts, but it really is, like, I don't know if a movie has felt this it's so personal in so many ways, and still I think it's hard to do that, make a movie so self autobiographical, but have it be so complex and nuanced and not straightforward and not you're just making yourself and dealing with really complex themes in a really profound way that doesn't answer anything, right? But I think I don't know, like creates inquiries in a really interesting way because usually when you kind of will make something so like directly connected to your life, you kind of loses the metaphorical aspect of it, right? And it's a lot more literal. And this
yeah.
movie, like kind of we're talking about, is so it dances around with a lot of different like tones or even kind of like genres or whatever. Weird. It's a weird movie. It's kind of singular in that way, and so that was just so bizarre to me while watching this. Aside from it being so personal, for sure.
Yeah. I think like I said earlier, it's when she's talking about like, oh, I wanna be the final girl type of thing. I felt in that moment that was the most obvious part of like Jane talking of like,
Okay.
that's, like, the reason Jane's making this slasher film,
Mm,
kind of.
yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, that makes so much sense of, like, Jane loving slasher films and then kinda making it and putting her own twist on it, but then, like, also entering that world from her perspective of, like, the transphobic aspect of it, like we've mentioned, of, like, I'm gonna flip it on its script, I'm gonna create it like that, but I'm also gonna put myself in the perspective of those filmmakers in that time of making this slasher film and kind of going through the motions, even though it's anti what you believe in, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like Chris's character talking about oh, I want to be the kind of the straight girl with her titties bouncing, running away from the killer type of thing,
Yeah.
while she's like dealing with her sexuality is very interesting. And I
Yeah.
kind of feel that with Jane, like kind of making this like straight, like almost like queer phobic film while being introspective about that and putting your queerness forward in that moment. It's like, okay, that's really cool and self-aware and kind of not sympathetic. That's like a stretch word, like I could put on it, but kind of like again, just putting yourself in those shoes and kind of
Yeah.
seeing how it feels and how you can stray away from those stereotypes while making that type of film. Like,
Yeah.
oh, it's possible to have not made this transphobic.
Yeah. I think, like, you can tell that Jane made this film not out of having, like, the answer to this, you know,
Yeah.
these questions, but kind of just as a way to explore them, right? I think, like,
Yeah.
that's so felt, and I think that's what makes this movie so effective.
I mean, in that whole sequence of you watching the first Camp Miasma film, she's making a transphobic point in that part,
Mhm.
right? Like she's even like self-aware of it, like, oh, this part's transphobic. Like Jane had to make that, right? She had to write that part and she had to direct that part. And that's very interesting of like
Yeah.
as a trans person making a transphobic movie, right?
Right.
And within your anti that movie, it's like
Right.
it's so crazy. Like the script is so just like going all over the place and
Yeah.
being very uh introspective again, like
Yeah.
it's just insane. The end of this film is very interesting for me because I kind of feel like I felt very like kind of let down by the ending. The especially like the final shot. I'm like, because I'm just someone that's like the movie is so gorgeous and then ending on a shot that's kind of lame. I was like, okay, bro.
Like the gas
Like
station?
yeah, the gas station kind of lifting over and you see these mountains and the fact that the mountains aren't like all super gorgeous. I'm just like to me it just kind of felt like it felt very safe to me, just like it also feels like kind of a reflection shot, just like of what you saw type of thing of like kind of being that
Yeah.
stereotypical slasher ending of like everything's okay, and you have the kids with the water guns and
Yeah. I mean,
uh
I think
Ellie
there's
or
I I agree and disagree because I was like, yeah, like the final like image preferably would be stronger. But I think like it not being artificial taps into something of kind of going away from that, right? Like kind of like be finally being able to kind of be in reality, like
yeah,
that like acceptance going forward, and that's very real. I also like the split diopter, like right before in the gas station, because it looks
yeah,
very similar to the one in the movie when she literally like
mm,
calls out, "That's split diopter," which is
yeah.
so funny when they're watching
Oh
it
yeah, that was
because it's like you just like shut up. But it's like we even talked about that when talking about End of Oak Street, how that happened in
yeah,
your theater, kind of.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I like the idea of it being, like, in reality and kind of this, I don't know, kinda, like, refreshing sort of aspect to it, but, like, a gas station isn't, like, the best looking part of like, best looking,
yeah.
like, set piece, you know what I mean? So,
What did you think of the whole chase sequence at the end with Little Death chasing Chris where Little Death ends up, like, killing almost every character
yeah,
that you saw before? So, like,
yeah,
kills Sarah Sherman's character, kills, her that one thing we didn't mention is what she talks about. You know how Chris is dealing with this sexuality, and she's talking about the relationship that she's in. Like we haven't talked about this.
Mhm.
She's like dating a girl. She's talking about polygamy, right?
Yeah.
She's dating a bi guy,
Yeah.
um, and Billy's like, "Do you like that?" And she's like very indifferent about it. Like she's like, "I don't know," that. But then
Yeah.
her partner's kind of like calling, and I didn't notice this. I didn't catch that beforehand of like her calling her and being like, "Oh yeah, I'm going on a date with him."
Mhm.
I'm going on a date with this guy, right? And it cuts to him, and he's like very that's also a funny portion of
Thor.
like his crop top and
Yeah.
like he's like all goofy type of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, that's a very interesting thing of like her going through the sexuality, and she's in this very complex relationship, right? That kind of
Yeah.
feels very friendly. You don't know how sexually active she is with these people, and it kind of feels one sided. Like her partner gets to date other people, but she doesn't have the audacity to like do
Right.
that because she likes this person too much.
Well,
It's
yeah, I
very
mean, she does technically, but
yeah. Yeah,
I
she
think
doesn't. I mean, she does in this movie. Like Gillian Anderson's character Billy, kind of like again, the whole movie is like an awakening of that,
yeah.
right? But she's kind of entering this world within the confines of this very
Yeah.
complex relationship.
And even so, I think, like, what I got just on a first watch, I think that part is just a little blurry to me on, like, what Jane's really trying to say with that, but, like, what I kind of got was this, yeah, like, being in a, like, polyamorous relationship and maybe wishing that they could just be, like, in a monogamous, like, situation with, like but they don't feel like they can, um, because they haven't, like, fully accepted themselves in some way or something. I
Exactly.
don't know if it's exactly like that could just be separate from, like, a like, I'm more of interested in, like, watching it again to see maybe if it's more kind of against the idea of polygamy, like, if it kind of, like, is really driving that in more, which I don't know, but that's it. It's interesting. I don't know. It's interesting to think about.
It kind of feels like it is in a way because I think because of how big of a side character that her partner kind of feels in this, right? She doesn't feel like a. It's not like she's mentioning her like crazy amount to Billy. It's not like she's like, "Oh, but I have a partner," right? It's
Yeah.
more like the movie kind of feels focused on their dynamic growing within the cabin area, of just like she's focused on the movie and she's focused on like obviously she's infatuated with Billy in a lot of ways, but also like confused about Billy of like how uh Billy's character is very like confident, right?
Yeah.
Very
Right.
confident in
Yes.
her
Definitely. Yeah.
sexuality. And
Yeah.
so
That's an
it's
important
weird being
point.
with Chris being kind of the antithesis of confident in her body and her relationship, which is confusing, right? Kind of building towards that like chemistry with that one person and kind of one person building up another for the better type of way, And it kind of feels like she would probably in retrospect, I mean, her partner and the bi guy get fucking massacred. They their heads get chopped off,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah.
And it kind of feels like a murder of that kind of
Part of
system.
herself. Yeah, yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
more like it could just be more of, like, what's important to her, but, like,
Yeah.
the way she treats the the relationship I mean, the relationship just with the girl, really, she's not really I don't sense any feelings towards
She's not.
Thor, but, like, it's kinda more of she really likes this relationship almost like a friend or like an asexual relationship and just does the sexual part as a way to keep the relationship is like that
Yeah.
was kind of
That's what it
what
felt
came
like. That's why
across.
it was hard for me to catch that at first because it feels so friendly. like
Sure, yeah.
them calling each other. I'm like, oh, that feels friendly.
Yeah.
It's like just calling your friend back at home and
Right.
like updating her. These things that didn't feel like a like a mutual love type of thing. So that was it's very interesting. And yeah, I mean those type of relationships are very rare in film, so it's kind of hard to like decipher kind of where the director's head is with that, or like because obviously like everything written in a script is like purposeful, so there's meaning to it. It's not just like a side kind of, oh, we're just gonna have this element in it to have that element in it. Obviously, it has some weight to it, especially for Chris's character and her progression throughout the film. But it's nuanced. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I liked the movie overall. I'm interested on a rewatch to see if the tone switch type of thing is just like a first watch kind of deal where it's just like so different from anything I've watched where it's like, oh, that's shocking and I don't know if I like it or not type of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if
Well,
I'm when I'm gonna see it, but
yeah. Well, I mean, it's a complicated movie for sure. I think that's why I just like when the credits rolled and everything, I was like, man, there's so much to think about and it's so nuanced and that was very exciting. And so I'm very high on this movie. I think um compared to other movies this year, especially, I think it's like complexities were more kind of interesting and have lingered with me in a positive way. But hope so. It's a hard to talk about movie too. So
yeah,
hopefully we did a good job. But yeah, definitely like this video. Rate 5 stars on Spotify, please. And we'll move
yes,
in
thank
to what did you watch this last week? Or 2 weeks, kind
it's been a
of.
while.
It's been we have 2 weeks
Yes,
because I kind of
and
fucked up.
it's been a while.
Yeah, go watch our End
And
of Oak Street review.
it's funny because I probably watched more movies the following week in just 1 week than I did this past 2 weeks. But I watched Mikey and Nikki in theaters by
Right, that's
Elaine May.
big.
So good. So good. The kind of I think it's a very sad film. There's a lot of moments where like the dynamic between Peter Falk and John Cassavetes, who are both just masterful movie stars, like they're just so good. Are kind of just playing like the plot twist really well, the kind of secrecy of their relationship and kind of the thrill of what's going on and like the kind of lore of their friendship and kind of what Mikey is doing to Nikki in this moment is kind of like whoa. I mean I'm not going to spoil it cuz Luke hasn't seen it,
Please.
but it's very insane and I as soon as I watched it, I called my father and I was like you should watch this.
Mhm.
And my dad watched it and he's like I didn't like it. And I'm like, "Oh, well, what about this element?" He goes, "Oh, I didn't catch that." I'm like, "Dad, that's like the most obvious part of like why this movie is so great, of like the sadness and like why the movie holds so much weight is because of what's happening between these two characters in this moment and like kind of betraying friends. It's like it's really good. And it's shot so well and the opening sequence is so good because the way that Elaine May is using silence in this film is really thrilling. Like the spaces between dialogue, kind of the ambience of what's going on outside and having this claustrophobic kind of like paranoia that Nikki has is really good. So yeah, I suggest this movie to anyone. It's so well written and Elaine May is like one of the best screenwriters ever. Um, and then I rewatched It Follows. Um, it's been a while since I've seen this movie. I used to have it at 4.5. I think the actual plot line of it is kind of lame. I don't really like the plot line of it, but it is genuinely still one of my favorite looking movies ever. I just love the way that David is shooting Fall. Fall is my favorite season. I love how kind of old school it feels while also being modern, and I love the space he has between it. And I've always been like, this is kind of what I want my movies to look like. They look really, really good. And then I watched Oriental Elegy by Alexander Sokurov, and he did Russian Ark, which I haven't seen, which is like the whole like one shot movie, which looks insane. But this is what an insane fucking experimental film. It's dealing with like it. The reason I watched this is because it felt like it was going to be very personal to what I made, and it ended up being like that. And it's very inspirational to what the short film I just released. And yeah, it's all about memory and dreams. The whole movie feels like a dream. It's one of the best looking shot things I've ever seen with like the fog and the score and like the way it's moving. It just looks absolutely insane. Like the mountains and the castles that are in this, and it just feels very ethereal. It doesn't feel like a real movie at all. It just feels like you're dreaming, which is so. I always lean towards those type of films. And then I rewatched Speed Racer in theaters and IMAX. What a fucking movie, bro. It's insane. It's just like
Cinema.
it's very overstimulating film, honestly. It's just
Yeah.
the I mean, it's a masterful film at CGI. I mean, this whole screen throughout the whole runtime is CGI basically. Um, and it just looks so good and so colorful, and the wipe transitions and the acting and the comedy fits really well. John Goodman's really good. There's great emotional weight at really good moments, and the lore of it is like fleshed out really well, and the city scope looks amazing, and the racing sequences are just out of this world. And I love how much this movie packs into its runtime. Like it uses its runtime really well, or it almost feels like a TV show where it's like hitting these big narrative plot points where it doesn't even feel like there's a second act. It feels like every act is a third act. And it's really good masterpiece. And then I watched Raising Cain in theaters. Watching a lot of good movies in theaters. Watched Raising Cain in theaters. I'm not high on Split. I'm not high on this movie, but it's better than Split for
You don't
sure.
like bipolar people.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's interesting. It doesn't have as much like De Palma archetypes like as much as other films. You know, it kind of feels more straightforward than a lot of his other films. And like the plot twist, I mean, I kind of go into it knowing like the plot twist. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of like a different thing. But the acting is great, and like John Lithgow playing all these characters is really good. Um, and then like it, I just like serial killer movies. Like it's like really hard to get a serial killer movie done really well, and this kind of does that portion of the movie really well. I wish the movie was longer. Actually, it's a really short movie, and I think it could have done more. Um, but yeah, it's fine. And then I watched We're All Going to the World's Fair. I already mentioned it earlier, but I think it's Jane Schoenbrun's best. Almost a 4 star for me. It's just masterful at like low budget filmmaking. I think if you want to make a low budget film, I think this is like doing it to the best degree. I was talking to Luke earlier, like yesterday, about why this movie's so good is because it doesn't feel like it had a low budget and it's doing with what it can with the low budget. It's like this is the story that they wanted to tell, and the budget is all they needed for it. And I think there's a big contrast between those different things of like, oh, this is we don't have much budget, so it's kind of mold it into what we can with this low amount of money that we can use, but it's completely different. And then I watched the Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, and then I watched Tony, a very emotional film for me.
Really.
Feels very personal to like kind of my portion of life like right now. Like I work in a restaurant and I love the community that the restaurant business kind of has, you know, kind of to me it almost feels like a theater group. I always like um the parallels there are insane. Like you have the people in the back of the house and you have all the characters like acting out, you know, like um everyone's personalities are thriving back there, and then as soon as you go to the customers out in the front of the house, you're kind of locked in on business, you know. It kind of feels like the curtains uh, on the theater. And Tony's really good and deals with drug abuse, and Dominic Sessa's great as Tony. And the romance tension is good, but the romance doesn't like go to where I kind of want it to go, honestly. And then I saw Don't Say Good Luck with Sonny Sandler, the new Netflix film, and it deals with cancer.
Whoa.
It's cry porn bullshit, but I will say I think this is one of the best Netflix movies to come out in recent years. Like the production value feels genuine. It doesn't feel like ugly like a lot of movies. And I have to say, despite her being a nepo baby, Sunny Sandler is really, really good at acting, and she has a really good presence on the screen. I would love to see her in some like really in like auteur work, like with some auteur directors in a smaller role. I think she could do really well. She showed a lot of stuff there. It's just because it's Netflix, you know where the movie's going to end up, and it's just kind of lame. You just kind of roll your eyes. Then I watched the end of Oak Street. Go watch our review on our short list on our YouTube and Spotify that we posted. And then I watched Peggy Sue Got Married. We'll talk about that later. And then I saw The Roaring Twenties in theaters. It's really, really cool seeing Humphrey Bogart on the big screen. That's for sure. We got a really long, like 30-minute intro by some professors here in Austin about why they are showing this movie. And this movie is like one of the last movies of Humphrey Bogart playing a villain. He never played a villain after this. I think this is his last villain. And after Casablanca came out, he was kind of the leading romance lead for the rest of his career. And this movie, he does really well as like the sinister bad guy kind of archetype. And I kind of wish Humphrey Bogart played more of those, honestly, because
Yeah.
he kind of has the face and knack for it. That's really well. And James Cagney is great as the lead. These old school movies are just so good, and there's just so much like lore with these old school movies because you have like Hollywood is just different back then, right? You had like big production companies like Warner Brothers, and they had like actors under payroll. Kind of how like Netflix does it now, in a way, where they have like David Fincher and like Millie Bobby Brown on payroll almost, where they don't
Sure,
do
like a
anything else.
version of it. Yeah.
A version of it, but it kind of feels like the lore of these old school. And also, this movie's really cool because it's a movie in the late 30s made about the 20s. So it kind of has that kind of retroactive thing about it. That's really cool. And it looks great, obviously. And then I watched The Piano in theaters.
Yes.
So good. I did not know what I was getting into, dude.
Yeah.
But Jane Campion is just so good. Harvey Keitel was great in this. I did not know that Holly Hunter won an Oscar for this, which is great. And she doesn't say a line the
Well,
whole movie. She's a mute. And Anna Paquin also won an Oscar at a really young age for this,
yeah.
which is really cool. And it won the Palme d'Or. Like, this is like a really well-respected movie that I'm glad to have seen in theaters. And Sam Neill, like, who just passed,
Yeah.
is
So
great
good.
in. I love the environment of this film. I love the shots on the beach.
Yeah,
I
I
love
love the
the kind
shots on the beach.
love the ethereal nature that the piano holds. Like the piano really is the center of the film, and I didn't expect this movie to be as sexual
Yeah.
as it
Harvey
is. Like it's a
Keitel and
very sexual film, and Harvey Keitel. At first, I was like, this kind of feels like predatorial, I guess. But it kind of acts as like a awakening of Holly Hunter's character's like sexuality within this divorce and being in an arranged marriage and kind of like her eventually kind of falling in love with Harvey Keitel. It's like, whoa, like there's great things. The Anna Paquin's character, fuck her. She's so. There's a moment that she does something and you're like, no. Um,
no.
don't tell him, like bullshit. Uh and yeah, the movie is really harsh, like in its themes, but it plays it very softly and beautifully and like poetically, and feels like it feels like very mature filmmaking in my opinion, like being it shows a lot of restraint from Jane Campion that I really like, and the music's beautiful. Like just and Holly Hunter's really playing that piano. There's no way around it. Like I was looking and it's like there's no way because they're panning from her hands playing this beautiful music up to her and I'm like she's really playing that shit. So she deserved the Oscar for sure. She was so good. And then I was watching way too many good movies, so I decided to
Yeah, is
torture
that
myself by watching.
so what brought you to Tag?
So, okay, really interesting lore with this movie. So, in 2018, I was what was that? 8 years ago. So I was 13 years old when it came out in theaters. And so it's a rated R comedy. And I remember seeing it like coming out, and I was like, I liked Tag, like
Oh, so you've seen it.
hearing about a rated R comedy about playing tag sounded really interesting to me back in the day, like as a 13-year-old. And I remember wanting to see it in theaters, but I just
Oh,
wasn't allowed in
okay.
the theater, you know?
Yeah.
And so then I was like looking for movies and I was like, I have no clue what to watch. And then Tag came up and I was like, I know this movie's going to be ass, but it's been so long since I even heard of this movie. I just kind of want to see it. And the cast is cool. And yeah, it's really shit. It's a 1-star movie, man. It's like the basic 1-star bullshit.
Any
Just
laughs?
like no, you don't laugh. I didn't laugh once. Like I think that's the biggest thing of like when it's a movie like that. I kind of base my rating on how much I'm laughing,
Yeah.
and a lot of the jokes are just like so dumb, and I'm like, fuck. Like the coolest thing about this movie is that it's a true story. Like
Yeah,
that's
right.
kind of
Yeah.
cool. Like that's kind of cool of like a friend group over 30 years playing a game of tag. Like why can't my friend group be that cool? Um, and then I watched A New Leaf in theaters by Elaine May. Really funny. That's my type of comedy. Apart from Tag, it's like really deadpan, kind of Monty Python type of comedy, like Airplane type of comedy, and those are like some of my favorite comedies ever. Um, there's just not a lot of depth to this movie. Unfortunately, it kind of leaves the depth till the end, and the main character is kind of really hateable. Of like he's very It's weird because at the beginning he's like kind of a dumbass. He's like a rich guy who's losing all his wealth, so he needs to like marry a rich girl, right? So he's kind of it's one of those predictable movies because there's so many movies like that nowadays of being like, oh, she's gonna find out, and there's gonna be a lot of drama there, right?
Yeah.
But
There's a lot of production. There's some good lore with that movie. I think Elaine May really struggled and she wanted a much longer cut, and they just like wouldn't let her, stuff like that.
yeah, you can kind of tell the ending is kind of really abrupt, and the emotional aspect of it happens at the last minute, and it's like, man, I wish I saw more of that because it doesn't feel believable with how much it even shows at the end. It kind of feels like a scapegoat kind of ending to kind of make you like the main character, who's kind of really hateable. But yeah, like I said, he's really dumb, but then towards like the middle of the movie, he starts playing it really smart. Like he knows how to do the taxes, and he's being really smart about how it's going about things. But there's so many good bits in this that are just bonkers hilarious. Like I haven't laughed this hard in a while. It's like the closest thing that made me laugh that hard is I Want Your Sex, which is also just super funny. And then I watched another Netflix movie, A Voicemails for Isabel. The reason I watched this because I knew it takes place in Austin. So I was like, oh, okay, I want to watch an Austin film. I live in Austin. It doesn't take place in Austin. They have like drone shots of Austin, and then you have shots within Austin that I'm like, that is not Austin.
That's like
That
Spider-Man
there's
Brand New Day.
Yeah, there's no place that looks like that in Austin. Like there's no way. And even like in the background, the buildings aren't even the city. I'm like, okay, bro, what are we doing here? And it's just really dumb. There's like kind of good romance stuff in it, which keeps it from a half star. The biggest thing that keeps it from a half star is Zoe Dutch. I'm just in love with Zoe
Is
Dutch.
she
Like
washed?
she's washed, but she's gorgeous.
Yeah,
Like
but
the
like
threesome is really good. Like she's really good in the threesome. I recommend people watching the threesome. That's one of my favorite movies of last year, and that's a Netflix film of just being like just like a really smart movie that has a lot of weight to it and doesn't feel like a Netflix film. So I would suggest go watch that instead.
Her
And then
her most popular
you got,
film on Letterboxd is Voicemails for Isabel. It's
are you
already
serious?
her number one. Yeah.
Bro, it has 813,000, bro, members.
Damn, it has a 3.5 average on Letterboxd.
Yeah,
People are
yeah.
loving it.
Yeah, people are loving it. People are loving it for sure. That's
Interesting.
insane, dude. It's more popular than Minions and Monsters.
Really? Holy shit.
Crazy. Oh, I have to mention Nick Offerman is hilarious in this. He's one of the major reasons he keeps it from a 1 star because he's so fucking funny. They call him Timu Gordon Ramsay at one point, and he starts like getting really mad. He's like that really strict like Michelin star chef, and
Mhm.
there's like a joke that he was third place on Top Chef, and he doesn't choose Zoe Dutch as his baker, and Zoe Dutch goes on like a rant. And it's like, you didn't get third on Top Chef, you got fourth, and it's like this big like moment of like he didn't get third, he got fourth on Top Chef, which is really funny. And the founder of the restaurant I work at, he won Top Chef, and he
Damn,
was a
that's awesome.
he was a he was a he was an Olympic volleyball player
The hell?
um, for the U.S. and he was playing the Olympics in Greece, and he fell in love with Mediterranean food, and he decided to make a Mediterranean chain, and that's where I work.
Dude, this guy
And it's
sounds
like
awesome.
it's one of the biggest restaurants in the U.S. that I work at, and he's really cool. I actually met him the other day, and he's 6'9", like he's a tall guy.
Holy shit.
He definitely looks like an Olympian for sure. But yeah, it's kind of cool to have some chef stuff in it as well.
Yeah.
And then I watched Novak Djokovic, The Wolf of Winter, The Wolf in Winter. I was looking forward to this all month because I played tennis growing up. I love tennis. It's my favorite sport. I follow tennis more than any other sport. I went to the US Open last year. Novak Djokovic is, in my opinion, the greatest athlete of all time because of all the accomplishments he's been able to achieve. He's still going to Grand Slam finals at 37 years old. He's like the LeBron James of tennis. Like he's able to do this. He's won 25 Grand Slams, all this stuff. He's won every single tournament tennis has to offer. He's won $1 billion. Like he's just like the greatest at the sport. Um, like no doubt about it. And this documentary is really, really bad. Like it really sucks. It feels like he's kind of tooting his own horn in this movie, which really sucks because he's more of a humble guy in my opinion from what I've seen online. But in this documentary, it kind of makes it seem like he wants people to side with him because he's kind of seen as the bad guy in in tennis, like he's a guy that doesn't hold back his emotions when he's mad. Like he'll slam his racket, he'll get the crowd involved when they're booing at him. They've booed him when he gets injured and stuff like that because people pay a lot of money to go to these games, right? Tennis is one of the most expensive sports to get tickets for, especially Wimbledon, which is the most expensive sporting event in the world. And he just gets booed all the time despite him being like the greatest. So he has a weird dynamic with the sport in that way, where it's like being hated as one of the greats. But yeah, he gets into some political stuff here that I'm like, you should not have touched base on. He got deported from Australia in 2022 for not being vaccinated. And that's fine and all, like in retrospect, but like the way that he's like talking about it in the documentary sounds very self-centered and all this stuff. And he's like kind of making the media out to be the bad guy. And like he's like the wolf in winter, right? Like he's going against the grain. I'm like, bro, you're a billionaire who wins every tournament. Like we know you're the
Right.
greatest. You don't have to like explain it to us. There's some cool stuff at the beginning of like how he was raised in Serbia, of like training to be like training tennis at a young age while his city was getting bombed. Like that's kind of crazy, of like him sleeping in shelters and his house got bombed and he lost his all of his possessions, and him training in Germany and leaving his family at a young age. He had to grow up early. Um that like that's cool and stuff, but the documentary just sucks in general. Like it's shot really weird. The editing is bad, and it sucks because the guy who directed this directed The Last Dance, and I liked The Last Dance a lot. So I was really expecting this to be like, oh, the guy who directed Last Dance is doing a Novak Djokovic documentary, who I love, and it just falls flat in every level and feels really dumb. They have like shots of Novak like meditating in his mansion, and just shots behind him, and it's like, I'm all about peace and serenity, and just it just feels so corny to me of like all this stuff. And you compare this to the Roger Federer documentary, which came out a couple years ago, and that documentary made me cry, right? Like I was crying to that documentary. It's one of my favorite sport documentaries ever because it's all about him losing his talent by age, and him for his body forcing him to retire. And there's something really emotional about that, of like him leaving the sport that he loves so much. And this one's just kind of like he's not even retired yet, right? And it comes out right before the U.S. Open, which is kind of like weird. So it'll be interesting to see how well he does at the U.S. Open this year. And then I watched The Fast and the Furious for the first time in theaters. I was expecting to not like it, and there's some really cool stuff in here. It's very corny in like a good way, honestly. There's like really funny shots of like burly men, and like they have like these sick cars, and the sound design on the cars is just very satisfying, right? You just like, man, I wish I had a sick car. And there's like all these pretty people in the movie that just keep it fun, and the dynamics and the plot twists of the police, and all this stuff. Yeah, it's like a fine movie. I actually enjoyed it a lot. I wish I watched it at a younger age, because I think this would be like one of my favorites, like just nostalgia based. I just have no nostalgia for it. But I didn't get too hung up on that, being like, oh, this is shot poorly or whatever. I just kind of like it's just like a fun movie to watch, And the theater was laughing at moments that felt very nostalgic for them. Like I was very aware of that, of like them laughing about it. And I'm
Mm,
like, oh, they probably like really like that part from as a kid, like certain
yeah.
characters of like being very burly. What I thought about is like this movie feels like it was made by those like those men who like love to power lift and have no like IQ. It feels like it was like made by those type of people. And like, oh, it's like those like really like those people that aren't into film. It's like, oh, let's make a movie about cars and pretty people.
Yeah.
It's like all that's what it feels like it was made by. So that's kind of funny. Speaking of funny, not really. I
Funny
watched
people.
Funny People. Why is this movie 2.5 hours long,
Oh
gang?
yeah, I remember that. It's like it's crazy.
And I was actually like not opposed to that because I really like This Is 40, which is also pretty long, by Judd Apatow. I always mention that I think This Is 40 kind of feels like the magnum opus of comedy movies of the 2000s. Whereas this one, I kind of felt like it was going to be like that. It kind of feels like Avengers Endgame for comedy, because there's just so many people in this movie. You got Bo Burnham, you got Aziz Ansari, you got Seth Rogen, you got Jonah Hill at his fattest here. You got like Jason
Some
Schwartzman, who plays an asshole. Like there's just so many people in this movie. Like it's insane. Um the first half is actually pretty good. And then the second half is you start really feeling the time, and you're like, holy shit, it's not funny. The plot's going like once he gets better from the cancer thing, it kind of gets worse. So yeah, it's a fine movie. It's whatever. It's not like the worst thing ever. But yeah, that's what I watched this last 2 weeks.
yeah. Okay. I watched The Long Weekend O Despair, which is Greg Araki's second movie. Um which I kind of feel very similarly to his first movie. But I like this one a little better. It kind of just goes more on like I think the conversations are more interesting. They're very political in like a good way, and um, it's I don't know. It's a decent time for what it is. Honestly, there's plenty of stuff that's just like not interesting. I think you just cut it out, but you know, whatever. Yeah. Um then I I watched Spider-Man, rewatched Spider-Man. Um Post Brand New Day really just after watching Brand New Day, I was just like, yeah, I really want to go back to the good times. And it really is
Yeah.
just like, oh my god. Like it's just like, yeah, everything that need, you know, that Spider-Man should be is this, you know, in so many ways. And Sam Raimi like inventing the organic web and that thing that's just brilliant. And I think like he also creates like like a specific film language for the character, which I'm just watching like, yeah, it's a real movie, you know what I mean? And, like, it's in New York, and you feel like it's in New York, unlike Brand New Day, which is, like, clearly in, like, the UK or whatever, and, like, there's new the people in the city who talk feel like a New Yorker, you know, which is not true, you know? It was kind of fun to, like, watch it and always compare it to Brand New Day, where I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is where that fails and this shit rocks," kinda thing, and this movie came out 24 years ago. Um, yeah, what else to say? I mean, I love Tobey Maguire as a casting, at least in these, because he's so just, like, naturally odd, I think, and,
Yeah.
like, his oddness really, um, makes it so interesting, you know, as a and there's so much, like, there's so much Peter Parker, and, like, he's a real person in the real world who has, like, real goals and wants to be a photographer. It's like, why the fuck is Tom Holland's character not a photographer? Like, why is he
Yeah,
not
that's a
taking
good.
pictures of Spider-Man? Like, that's like, why are we not doing that? You know, why is he talking to Iron Man the whole time? You know, it's just like this is perfect, you know. Also, like the Harry and MJ and Uncle Ben and Aunt May and them being like real people. Like MJ, you just hear her fighting with her parents, and you know she wants to be an actress, and she is, and that's up, and she's working at a diner, and I'm like, this is like so great, like this small scale stuff. I just it's so great. And at the same time, it makes it feel so lived in while still being a comic book. You know, it still feels like a comic book. Man, oh man. Then I watched La La Land in theaters in Dolby. I had a terrible experience watching this movie because I AMC fucking lied to me and played this movie about like 10 minutes after the posted showtime. And AMC famously, I know you don't go to AMU Alamo. AMC has like the worst issue with fucking previews where they have like three different AMC clips after all the trailers. They have three different AMC clips that are like the format you're in, like I don't what is it? It's like there's like a dance montage thing, you know, the Nicole Kidman thing, um, and they're all so long and whatever. Basically, it's really long preview. So I always leave at the time the showtime is, and I'm always there like 5-10 minutes early. That's how crazy it is. And, I did that this time, go in, and the movies we're at, like we've missed the whole, another like, A Day in the Sun or something when they're
Yeah.
honking at each other in the cars, missed that, and it's kinda, like, about to be the, Someone in the Crowd song. And so I was pissed off, and then these fucking girls all behind me were talking and laughing they were talking like loud the entire time and like laughing and like just a disaster. And then even at like the very last moment, right? When they look at each other, the iconic moment, they start like they giggled really loud, and someone next to me just went shh, like shushed them hard, and they shut the fuck up, and that was awesome. Other than that, you know, really good movie. I think the more I watch Damien Chazelle's movies in general, the more the flaws begin to appear to me a little bit, but like there's a lot of great stuff that I always notice on rewatches too. And I think like what's holding back La La Land for me now is I think it's a little uncomplicated, just kind of generally throughout. It kind of goes and like they're falling in love, they're mad at each other, it kind of like those segments feel very straightforward, and like I kind of like relationship dynamics that are like, complicated more, or like, oh, if it had that aspect a little. Anyways, then I watched Sleepaway Camp. I don't want to talk I want to talk about this movie so so bad, but I would be giving away things, and I don't want to do that. Because you haven't seen it, but also people haven't seen it probably. I'll just say like perfect double feature for Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, which I told you, but also it's really fun. It's just a fun slasher. It's kind of what Friday the 13th should be, because Friday the 13th is just not that good in my opinion, at least the first one. And this one's just like really fun, good slasher, interesting, funny kids. The costumes are crazy. Like there's like guys in like mesh crop tops and like the shortest shorts because it's like the 80s and all that. And it's yeah, I I I I have a big issue with the movie. There's a big problem with the movie. Um this is a fact. Um, Anyways, then I watched okay. Then yesterday I wanted to watch something major, and I've been wanting to watch this movie for years, and I put on Deja Vu by Tony Scott starring Denzel Washington, and I didn't really know much about it, right? I'd seen some like images from it, and I put it on, and I'm quickly like, okay, this is really fun. I don't know if this is like major. And it keeps going and it keeps unfolding. And it literally is like one of the greatest things I've ever witnessed in my life. Like actually a miracle, actually brilliant. Like holy fuck. There's a car chase in this movie that's crazy. Denzel Washington is insanely good. It's like uh, the logic, it kind of reminds me of End of Oak Street logic. Just because it's like there's maybe like science things that like it's doing like a maybe like a sci-fi thing, right? Where like if you like think too much about it, you're just gonna lose everything because whatever. But it works so well thematically for the movie, and it's so fun. It's so much fucking fun. Um, I'm gonna show this to a lot of people, and I think like just so interesting in a way that's really gonna stay with me. Um, yeah, highly recommend that. And then I just right before recording this watched Operation Avalanche. I'm ever since I kind of started watching Nirvana the band and all that for Nirvana the band, the show, the movie, which I really liked, and I kind of want to rewatch again. Actually, especially after Avalanche, where I'm like, I love Matt Johnson. I think he's like, I don't know. I'm just like this as a guy is like so interesting, and
Yeah.
he's so smart. And the more I watch from him, the more I'm kind of like, holy fuck, because this movie it's about Matt Johnson plays Matt Johnson in like the 60s as like the guy who fakes the moon landing. He like is the filmmaker that fakes the moon landing. And it's kind of filmed in the style of the mockumentary Nirvana the band stuff, but it mixes a lot of archival footage of that time of like Kennedy speaking and like the mission control room of all that, and in it, and it's kind of like brilliant of like this low budget filmmaking, triumph, I think. It was like $1 million movie because it's a lot of like, it's like shot on film and all that stuff. But yeah, that was like really good, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna like that one at all, and I'm quickly like, wow, like this, and it's edited really well. It's really good. Like I'm seeing Tony tomorrow, I think, so I'm super excited for that. But yeah, that's what I watched. All right. Peggy Sue got married.
Yes. I really like this movie, man. Um, Also, I have to fact check you. This is not his first movie. This is not Nicolas
Oh,
Cage's first
okay.
movie.
Yeah, fact check me.
So Nicolas, so Nicolas Cage is in he's in another De Palma, or he's in another Coppola right before this that I'm
Which
actually
one?
watching probably tonight or tomorrow to make it my 10th. He's in the Cotton Club
Oh, okay.
right before, and his first movie was like the Rochemont High movie with Sean Penn.
Oh,
So that
Fast
was
Times
his
at Richmond High?
yeah, yeah. So
Oh,
that's that
all right. I was
that's
off
Nicolas
on
Cage.
that.
Yeah, so I think this is his third or fourth movie, but he's really oh man, he's the best part of this movie because he is so strange. And you were telling me how like he said he would only do this if he had creative liberty to do what he wants. And that just makes it so much more fun of like the veneer ass teeth and like the way he's talking like this kind of. He's talking like in a high pitched voice and he's trying to play all suave, but he's like I love you, like just like shit like that and the comedy there. Um I love Man, the time travel in this is funny because it's just, I mean, it's kind of referenced to be more like a dream than like an actual like time
Yeah.
travel thing, right? It's like she just passes out when she wins the thing, and then the coolest thing is just getting to see all these people you get introduced to really quickly at the beginning to like at when they're younger, like Jim Carrey's character, and like the guy who's really rich
Right.
now was like bullied as a
Right.
kid, like all that stuff, and yeah, I mean, it's a really fun movie. It's just one of those movies that just feels like, okay, that's fun and cool. I don't see how it could ever be like a masterpiece. You know what I mean? Like I don't see where like the appeal for you is. So I'm very interested to see like why this is like a masterpiece to you because to me it just feels like okay, that's like a really good movie. I think it's underseen for sure. Like it's an underseen movie from that era. Like I think my parents would really like this, and I guarantee you my parents haven't seen this. It came out a year before Back to the Future. Maybe that's why, because like Back to the Future
Mm.
was
It came
such
out
a big
before.
moment.
Yeah.
It came out a year after, I
Oh, a
think.
year after. Okay, yeah. So that was probably
Yeah,
like living in the vein of
87.
Back to the Future.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
But yeah, the performances are great. I really like it. Kathleen Turner's great. The world that it's building is really great. I like Peggy Sue's kind of intro into like returning to her younger self, right? It takes her a while to accept that she's not in a dream, you know? Like she's just there and I love her little quirky moments where she's talking about like I'm an adult, you know? Like and like no one like catches that, which I think is so cool. Like where she's like drinking the bourbon and it's like, ah, no, like I've had kids, you know, to her parents, and her parents like don't even catch that as something she's saying, and they just go on with the conversation. I think that's really quirky and fun. Um, I like her relationship with the nerd guy of like how he turns to believe like that she's from the future, and they're like, and his kind of arc is like he wants her to like marry him so that they can be like power couple and like get really rich off of all these um like inventions that aren't till later, and I like that portion of it. I like the way the movie's shot. It's really cool. um i I actually really don't like, I'm interested to see what you think of this because I really don't like the so her relationship with Nicolas Cage's character Charlie. It's kind of all over the place. It does feel like a high school relationship, right? And she has this moment where she has to decide whether, or she mentioned earlier like when she was an adult how there was this like really attractive guy in her class, and she like always wished that she slept with him, and she ends up doing so when she goes back. There's like a weird character dynamic thing that I didn't think I really like attached myself to of man, it's really difficult. Like it's really hard to put words to it because
Okay.
there's a moment that I really like where he kind of Charlie sneaks into her house and they have a conversation in the basement. And he's like, "Ah, I'll give my life to you. Like, I'll never leave you," and all these things. And I think that moment's great because it has the moment of she knows how it's going to end up type of thing. But the biggest thing for me is it doesn't seem like she has any fear of changing the past type of thing, which I think is very interesting because if I were her, I would be really afraid to change anything in the past of like she breaks up with him very early on of like them being there, of her being there. And I'm thinking like, are you not thinking like is Peggy Sue not thinking of her kids in this moment? Because like I think it's pretty obvious if she breaks up with him and they don't end up together, like she's not gonna have
Yeah, I
her
think there's
children.
it's kind of weird in that way because it doesn't, but it's because because she's kind of unhappy, right? She's kind of like it's kind of like a kind of depressed state where it's kind of just but also like is she taking this seriously? She's kind of almost not taking this world seriously as like there's kind of
Yeah.
like the the things, which I mean, I think is fun. Like I'm watching her do that, and it's kind of more fun and silly versus if she was always kind of like worried, because I guess like the Back to the Future is kind of like a worry about changing. That's kind of what that movie is centered
Yeah.
around, and
I
and
think it would have been interesting to maybe continue with that or continue with her like changing it, but like maybe having like some emotional turmoil where she's thinking about her kids more, where she's like, "Oh, if I do this, like I'm gonna I'm not gonna have my baby," like all this stuff. But then she like decides to still do it to like free herself in that moment because she knows how it's gonna end up and she wants to change her life for the better type of thing. But then it almost all feels pointless when she goes back, right? Where she goes back and her kid is still there. And I guess that's the logic of the movie though, is that it's not really time travel. It is kind of like a dream. And in that point, it's like, oh, okay. Then you kind of have to like get on board with that, but it happens too like the realization of that happens too late. Whereas like it kind of feels like she actually did time travel and she's gonna go through this, but
Mhm.
then when she comes like, oh, that was obviously more of like a dream thing. Like she wasn't like physically there. And it's kind of acted like a dream where she was been asleep, right? And there's not like one through moment like we're in Back to the Future. They're very actively knowing that they're going back. Like they're going in the car. Like
Yeah,
they're going
there's a
down the street and
device.
there's like a tangible thing of like that's how we go back and this is how we get there. Um so that's just a very interesting thing on a first watch. It's hard to grasp because
Yeah, it's kind of a reveal
it,
of like
yeah,
why
because
that's
it kind of like makes you question her as a character,
yeah,
right? Like like her as like a moral human being
yeah,
of like being super selfish of being like but you have children
definitely. Yeah.
and like do you really like despite you knowing how it ends up is it really that bad to where like you can't appreciate making mistakes? Like I think that's part of the human condition of like making mistakes. I kind of was constantly thinking as I was watching it, I would have preferred if she tried to instead of like dismissing Charlie entirely of like and just like trying to do her own thing of like using her knowledge of being an adult and Charlie in the future of like trying to better the relationship early on, like making it a healthier relationship early on because I think there's multiple moments where Charlie is obviously not the best boyfriend in high school. And they even mentioned that the reason they got married is because they got pregnant at 18, and that's very interesting because it's like maybe building the foundations of a healthy relationship before you make the mistake of having a baby at 18, right? With this person that you maybe don't love, maybe like try and find the betterment of him or maybe like try and sway him as like just using that adult mindset,
Yeah, but I
rather than
think
being
that situation is
playing.
so kind of, it's a weird thing because it's like, what if that person, that should never have happened is kind of the thing, right? Like you should never have been married to that person, but you got put in that situation, or like that kind of
Yeah.
denial. And I think it kind of like plays on that with like because then it
But
also,
it's weird.
if a kid's like a accident, right? Like there's, obviously not that she hates her kid, but like it's a little bit more like, what is she thinking? Does she take that back, or like it, it's just kind of weird. It's definitely
Yeah.
weird.
Well, it's weird because they end up having sex on her 18th birthday, which is very interesting. Like they end up having sex, which is inevitably like she goes back to
Hmm.
her true body. But ultimately, I think the movie's fun. Like those things aren't like the craziest thing. It's like that's not like why I hate it. It's I don't hate the movie at all. I really like the movie, and I think I'll show my kids this.
Yeah,
Maybe not instead of Back to the Future, but I think Back to the
I
Future is
would.
probably more accessible and like that movie's like monumental to me as a kid. That movie's so nostalgic to me. So I just always will prefer Back to the Future to this because I also like the plot point of Back to the Future more of like your mom falling in love with you. I just have more fun with that. Like that's kind of crazy too. Like people
Yeah,
forget
that is weird.
like Back to the Future is like a basic, oh, of course you like that movie type of thing. But I think we forget how like kind of bold that movie was even in 1986. Like that's still like a cool movie. It doesn't matter if everyone likes that movie. Like I think that movie's still fucking amazing and great. But and I'm not comparing the two movies at all during this either. Like I think they live in their own worlds and they kind of feel very different and they're doing different styles and it's obviously two very different filmmakers doing it. And I think you can tell that Francis Ford Coppola is a better. I easily prefer Coppola over Zemeckis, right? Like I'm not a huge Zemeckis fan, right? I think Forrest Gump sucks, but I think the filmmaking is better here than Back to the Future. The plot's really fun. I just don't think it's anything like monumental special, right? I just think it's like, oh, like, it's a movie of its time. It's really fun and quirky. I like the cars and the time travel aspect of it, and I like dude, Nicolas Cage is endlessly fun in this movie. Like he's so fun, and Jim Carrey is super young in this, and uh, Coppola's in this as well, and Helen Hunt's in it. Just like, yeah, just great stuff. I really like it.
All right. The Christophers. Um, it's cool. I mean, I guess it's like a broad thing. My thoughts are like, it's cool, but nothing is like great to me, honestly. Where like I even like saw a lot of people having that reaction of, I think most people aren't saying this is like major, but like nothing. I mean, Ian McKellen's great.
Yeah,
I think
oh,
that's a given. I think that's kind of what everyone's
he's
talking about with
awesome
this
so
movie.
much in this film.
Yeah, and it's kind of the role he's made for right now, you know. It's kind of about like, Michaela Cole's character is hired to kind of like forge his paintings to because his children want to sell him for a shit ton of money before he dies. Because Ian McKellen apparently is 87. Allegedly he's 87. He's like 105 though.
Yeah,
And but he's very eccentric in this movie. I love how he like is a cameo. He just makes cameos all day. It's like what he does now. Um, but I was actually really interested in, because she's hired to kind of become his style and paint the Christophers, which are the series of paintings in his style, to be able to sell them. And I was interested in like her kind of becoming him, and like that kind of mix of mentalities, and it abandoned that and went into something else, which is fine. But I was a little bummed because I remember like thinking like, oh, that's a really interesting setup. You know what I mean? Um, I don't know if it totally makes sense, like seeing the whole movie, because they kind of go um in a different direction. um, that I don't know if I got as much out of. Um, but it's cool. I mean, yeah, I don't know. There wasn't like a ton I just like super loved, I guess, you know.
I
Um,
think the movie rides or dies with Ian McKellen's character because, like you said, he is eccentric. Like, uh, he's an openly gay man, right? And
yeah,
he it talks about how he was openly gay in the '90s, which is very rare, and that's what the Christophers are all about.
yeah,
There's this whole lore of the Christophers, and he doesn't want anyone to see it. He has this really cool aura to him and like mentality of art, and I think I mean, it does take that more optimistic approach towards, like you're saying, towards the end, about it. And I think James Corden is and like the sister are like kind of interesting in it as well. Of like
yeah,
he just hates his children,
yeah.
which is like
No, their
funny. I
dynamic
also
is
love
super funny.
I love the set of like he has two houses
Hmm.
like on either side. Like that portion of it as well. The biggest thing about this movie, like why I recommended it to you, it's people were constantly comparing it last year to Blue Moon. Do you see that a lot? Because it feels like a play, but it's not a original
I don't
play,
think it
and there's so
feels
much
a ton like a play because of like the blue moonness is like this movie like jumps to like I don't know. I don't like it could be a play. Like I could see that. Like it definitely could
yeah.
be. Um I think a lot of it is kind of focused past the dialogue a little bit more. Um where like Blue Moon is I mean like this is an actor showcase. I could see it now that I'm thinking about it, but I just think it's like because there's so many rooms, like so much of it is the set and moving through the set and the spaces and
Yeah.
kind of things like that where Blue Moon's definitely just so much more confined. But like I actually thought that Michaela Cole's character dynamic was, or not character dynamic, like personality, like her just character was more interesting than Ian McKellen's, and I was like really interested in her, um, as like a maybe a artist that's given up or something like that, and facing the person who caused that and like that aspect of it. Um, but I
It
think,
also
yeah,
it also feels like to me like almost like an AI allegory. I don't know if you caught this, but it almost feels like an AI allegory because Ian McKellen even talks about when he finds out that she's like trying to like basically copy his art, and
yeah,
it's like, he literally asks her, he's like, do you feel any like rewarding factor of copying work, like not doing your own work,
hmm,
right? And there's something, and also Michaela Cole plays the character really flat. She kind of feels like an observer, right? She's not talking much.
yeah,
She kind of has this annoyance about her
yeah,
of him like having to be, and she's like kind of having to act like she's interested, and she doesn't really care. She's all in it for the money, and then he kind of creates the space for her to start being more creative. And I think there's something so powerful when I was watching it of being like when they're having fun and just throwing shit at the canvas and just like destroying the Christophers. I like kind of loved that of like just destroying the thing that had so much esteem around it. There's so much esteem over the Christophers, like they're worth so much money, and them having fun and playful with it. It's like kind of experimenting with something that shouldn't be experimented with. Is like what really drove me to like love the movie when I was watching it. Again,
mhm,
like the acting is great by
yeah,
Michaela Cole. It's a two-hander basically, and then like the dialogue is super insane. Like that's felt like such a hard script to write. I'm like, fuck, this is so much words, so much dialogue. So yeah, I mean, I get it. Like it's not like as deep as and emotional as Blue Moon. Blue Moon is like I want to watch that.
yeah,
I want to rewatch that movie so much because it just went on Netflix. I was like,
yeah. My emotions were definitely a lot more detached with this.
yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, there was some like detachment or like some place it was going that I just felt I missed out on a little bit. Um, I don't know, but it was like enjoyable, like kind of all the way through. Just like it was like calm little movie. Like that was kind of my vibe. Like we're like I
Mhm.
didn't, yeah. Good. All
Cool.
right, but yeah, that wraps it up for this episode.
We're gonna
Next.
recommend each other a movie.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah. All right, I know what I'm recommending you, and I'm really excited about it actually.
Okay, I'm going to recommend you Vanilla Sky.
Oh, a rewatch. Okay.
So the reason I'm recommending it to you now is because I'm watching it tonight.
Oh, so we can
Because
both talk about it.
exactly a year ago from the 23rd, um, I watched it for the first time August 23rd of last year. So I'm gonna give it a rewatch now. I think this is a movie that like deserves a rewatch from you. I don't know what you have it at right now.
I would have
That
three
is a good question.
stars, but
Yes, I think this will be a huge uptick.
it's
To
probably a
me,
safe bet.
this movie feels the most similar to Megalopolis to me, that a movie that's ever been made. And I know you love Megalopolis. Like to me, this is like my Megalopolis. I think when I rewatch it tonight, I'm gonna give it 5 stars. Like I can't stop thinking about this movie. It's very bold filmmaking. It's just insane that this is even real. Like it's so deep, and there's so much stuff that's going on with like a dystopian future, but and like obviously like the most famous thing about this movie is that they filmed like in Times Square empty, which is like one of the most expensive shots ever filmed, of them filming in Times Square with nobody there. They
Yeah,
rented out Times Square for this movie, which is insane. The music is so good in this. It starts with a Radiohead song. Who doesn't love a Radiohead song in a movie? I think you'll appreciate this movie a lot more because I think this kind of fits your style. And just when I watched this, um, I really liked it. And then kind of as I got to know your taste, even like watching, like doing the podcast with you a little bit more, and like me starting to dive into that kind of element of filmmaking, this kind of feels like a movie you would really like. And I feel like it's just this is due a rewatch. I don't. When was the last time you watched this? 2022. So
yeah,
more than 4 years ago,
4 years.
bro.
Yeah, yeah.
I think, and your review is the definition of trying too hard, and I think you like that now. Like
Uh, yeah, I don't remember
there's an
that. I don't
element.
stay. Listen, we all say things and do
Yeah.
things, and
So I'm excited for you to revisit it, and I think you'll see a lot of um stuff in it that you'll really like. So I'm really excited for you to dive into this one again. It'll be very, very interesting to see like what you appreciate about it or whatnot. So yeah, it also feels perfect since I'm rewatching it. Just like
yeah,
we can both talk about it fresh next week.
yeah, definitely needs rewatch, and I agree. I think I'll like it a lot more. I'm recommending you Under the Silver Lake, David Robert
Okay, perfect.
Mitchell, because you've seen It Follows, you've seen End of Oak Street. You really like both of them, and this one is my favorite. Um, so
Look at that. Perfect. It's in my movies I
yeah.
must watch in August. It's already in there. So
There we go. I kind of
perfect.
figured you would have a plan to watch it, like
Yeah.
but yeah. Yeah, Andrew Garfield's fucking really good. Topher Grace is in it. I really like Topher Grace. It's kind of a conspiracy like mystery movie, and there's some cool set pieces and settings, and it's
So
a good time.
so the most interesting thing about me for this film is I have no idea what the tone of this movie is, and I don't want you to tell me because I kind of wanted to go into this movie blind. But what I see a lot from this movie is people don't like this because it's slow or there's like no. I think that's what it is. Like it's slow, right? It's a longer movie. I mean, I recommended you also. Well, the movies are both 2 hours and 20 minutes, so this is kind of perfect. But I think I'm very interested to see how much mystery is actually involved because a lot of people find it very confusing or
Yeah.
like weird. I'm very
Yeah.
interested on this movie, like the tone of it, of like it being weird, and also just Andrew Garfield being attached to like the casting seems interesting. Like I'm excited to see him in this role. Andrew Garfield's very interesting as like a person because he's in some like strange stuff. Like the fact that he's in Silence is like kind of cool. Like that kind of like
Yeah.
boosted
No, he's an
his
incredible actor, genuinely. I think one of our best working actors.
yeah. I'm very excited to see this. So yeah, I think we'll 3.4 too. Like that's a perfect rating for me to love it. It's
Yeah,
funny
it's
because
an interesting
David Robert
graph.
Mitchell, all his movies are like low average. Like even It Follows, which is like a cult classic. Like I feel
Yeah.
like I'm always surprised to see It Follows only have a 3.4, you know, because it feels
Yeah.
like that's a movie a lot of people in our generation like love. It kind of feels like a modern cult classic, I
Yeah, it's
guess.
definitely yeah, definitely.
So it's weird seeing like a lower rating on that. So I'm excited. And this is not as watched, obviously, than It Follows, but
Yeah.
I mean, Owen has it at a 4.5. So fuck. Jeez.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. Next week, episode 28, we're talking about the Dog Stars, I think.
Yep.
So fun stuff. New Ridley. Let's go.